Hello, everybody. Every few months, I like to look at the economy, see what's going on, try to trace out and understand basically what's happening financially, globally. So this is part of the Beyond Borders project that I've been working on. I'm trying to get a couple friends involved with this. If you're personally interested in some of these topics, just send me a text message and we can try to collaborate on this. But basically, what we're going to look at tonight is kind of like a global stock market overview. I have this presentation that I've been working on, but we're basically going to kind of skip through most of this presentation and kind of look at some of the details on the stock market map. So basically, if you're not familiar, this is TradingView. It's one of the top platforms for studying stock analysis. I use this pretty often, every day or so. And basically, this is the S&P 500, SPX. And you can see over 3 months, it kind of does vary quite a bit. It kind of had some downward trends just before Christmas, and then kind of upward trend heading into the new year. So we're definitely on a positive cycle right now, and you can kind of draw that in. The nice part about this tool is they have different kind of like ray tracing. You can kind of see it's basically been up kind of through there. And there's also been kind of like a level here. You can see there's kind of this channel. Let's see if we can get a channel here. I think I'm going to go get a channel on this one. Yeah, so this has kind of been channel through here, right? And then right up to there. So you can kind of see most of the data is falling within that range as it kind of goes up over the past 3 months. So that's basically the American economy. But what's going on globally is kind of interesting. So I made up this chart, and we wanted to kind of see basically the top markets globally. So of the top markets globally, Japan is the next one to really look at with their Nikkei, which is the N225. So we're going to see if we can look up that one. N225. And of course, it doesn't show up. Japan Nikkei. We'll just try 225. Here it is, the 225 Nikkei 225 trade index. So we should be able to see this one. These are all searchable usually. Give me 1 second here to switch this out. We're gonna probably go to the FTSE, the UK exchange next, just because we can't find the Nikkei right now. So FTSE, I think that one should definitely come up. Let me see if I can log into my account. See if we can clarify some of this. And I will log in here with a password momentarily. I just got to get that off of my system, and once we get the password in, we'll hopefully be able to log back in here and put this back on. And the Nikkei index should show up. I'm surprised it doesn't show some of my accounts. And 225. Let's do if they have indices. Japan. Nothing, huh? Interesting. Well, that's too bad. So we're not going to be able to look at that one, that index. We'll try to find it maybe next week and take a look at that. But the FTSE hopefully should show up. Let's try this one here. Huh. All right. Let's go to ChatGPT and find out how we can find out if there is. Okay, on interact. Alright, so it looks like we could look up N225 or the Yahoo Finance symbol or just the NK. Let's try the NK for see if the futures show up. Just NK. That's not showing up either. This does show up. So, alright, maybe this will give us a balance of. This shows 1 hour chart, so it's not really what we want to see. So these are usually tradable symbols, so these are not. Let's see if we got this one. Okay, 225. Alright, that's a little better. Alright, so maybe this is the main chart that we have. So, well, let's just check this with Yahoo really quick. And sometimes they got the NK or N225. Let's just make sure that this is on the same major chart. Let's just do 1 year chart. Okay, so yeah, that does look pretty good comparing these two charts. So basically we have the but I usually like to see the 3 month because it's a little more volatile and you can see what's really been going on. So now we can compare this via the SPY, SPX, and compare the two on one chart. Alright, so we can see that they pretty much do track with each other. You can see a downward trend here, upward trend here, and that's kind of going to happen around the world. And we'll see most of these charts will indicate that. And you can see it doesn't show some of the volume. We really want to see volume in order to see these other charts, which we could see on the SPY. But I'll turn off the SPY for a second so we can just kind of analyze this together. But basically what we see is we do see kind of a two-channel system here. So we have like kind of a lower channel here, and then an upper channel here, and then this one, let's see. We can get this. So that's kind of the channel area, and I think it's even going down a little bit, so you can just kind of see some of that channel through there. And then there's definitely kind of a break in here somewhere. And we can do that by a different line, so there's going to be kind of a ray starting around here, and that's like December. Looks like around the December 18th and 17th. So it's basically been going up. So the market looks pretty good in Japan. I'm going to save some of these symbols so I have them for the future. NK225, so I can search for that in the future. NK225. And that way I can find these faster in the future. Just set a link to that. Now the FTSE, this should hopefully show up. Let's ask the AI what the ticker symbol is. Okay, didn't get it right, but UKX. So we want to do one of these. So we probably want to check the UKX. See if that shows up. UKX. And that looks like it's got out of Paris, though. We don't really want that. So some of these international markets are a little bit harder to find. Let's see if we can find that a little bit. Z. So let's try Z. That's an interesting ticker symbol. Z. Zillow Group. Doesn't look like it's got Indices, maybe? All sources, Z. Nope. But it may be actually better for us to use Yahoo than my actual trading platform, because these are actual traded symbols, and sometimes the traded symbols won't show up. But let's still try to find it under this ISF. Okay, let's try that one. ISF. Now this shows iShares Core, London Stock Exchange, LSE. It's trying to reconnect me out on this again. That's unfortunate. But it could also be a number one of these. So basically what we're trying to do is go through and check out all these markets internationally, just to kind of see and compare what's going on. But it looked like the Japanese market was doing pretty good. NK225 was the symbol for that. It's still trying to load up. Unfortunately, get my lock in here. Let me do this again. So sorry about that, but let's still keep on trying to find it, because it was pretty easy to find. Always use UKX for the F. Always use UKX. If you're for futures, trade Z on ICE exchange. iShares is ISF. So maybe we'll have to look at ISF, because that's going to be an actual ETF for the FTSE. You're not liking me. So let's go back here and try to get, once this clears out, there's some kind of error with my brokerage right now, trying to log in while we're doing this live, unfortunately. But as you can see, this is the 3-month plan for basically what's been going on overall in the market. You see basically some of the technology stocks have actually been falling quite a bit. On the hardware side, they've been doing quite good. You can see Nvidia is doing good, TSM is doing great. Micron Technology, a friend of mine is investing in Micron. He's doing awesome in Micron. And then some of these others, you can see Google and Meta kind of having opposite days here. Meta up 30%, or excuse me, Google up 30%, Meta down 10%. But let's see if we can get back to this. I'm gonna have to clear this out later. So looks like we're not gonna get. This was it. What was the one that it said for the ISF? ISF. So this looks like the main one for the stocks. Would it be under ISF? No. Probably going to be this one. iShares Core, London Stock Exchange. Alright, that looks pretty good for, let's see if we can get this on the 3-month. So again, this looks a lot more solid on the upswing. So it looks like the London market, because you can see that they're back to here November, looking at a pretty clear up, and then having kind of a channel. And sometimes what I do is I put, you can do like a pan or a this shows, so you can do kind of a range on those. and that's kind of interesting to see because you can see kind of the middle range and then quartiles on that, and it looks like it's kind of on the bottom quartile, but still that's doing pretty good when you compare. It actually just broke the bottom quartile there and went into the half range. So it's kind of showing some initial signs of positivity there. So let's put that back on the chart and just put this as ISF. And then DAX, let's find out what the German DAXi is. Use that as a ticker symbol here. Trade it out. DAX. So we're probably just going to be under just DAX then, right? Let's see if this shows up for the German DAX. DAX index. Germany 40 cash. DAX. And we should probably compare these with the Yahoo one just to make sure that the... because there's so many different trading accounts that it has. Especially on these international accounts, we don't really know which is the main DAX. But let's try, I'm going to bet that it's probably this one. And that looks about right, actually. So my friend follows the DAX very carefully. And this looks kind of like the London exchange when you compare them. Let's just do a comparison with the ISF. See, so it actually looks like London's doing slightly better than the DAX, and we can even add another one for the SPX on top of this and see, and SPX is kind of a middle ground there, and even losing ground, gaining some, losing on that. So that's kind of an interesting chart to see all three of these, but let's double check that it is actually what we think it is. So it said GDAXi, so we want to do GDAXi just to make sure that this is the right. So it says 2490.71, so that looks like the same chart as we got here. So just DAX, and when we look at this in the future, hopefully it'll be a little bit faster because we'll be able to have the tickers right there. So I just was making this whole chart easy for everyone to kind of see, and this way we can check out France, and let's just ask ChatGPT for France. CAC 40 spot. Okay, let's try that. And this is probably it because it says index and then it says index as well. But let's look at that. Nope, didn't work. What about this one? Alright, let's take off this one. I just leave the SPY on there. And actually, look at how closely that's monitored by the SPY. Almost identical. And you can see which one's leading and which one's trailing because you can see they both had some downs here, but it actually... Europe's market went down first before, so that's a good help. You can see, and then started to recover before the American market did. So you can use data like that by tracing these international markets. You can kind of see which one's which and which one can have potential gains. So let's put this down here. CAC 40. Now this is a interesting one because there's several in Europe. You can see there's basically one in the UK, there's one in Germany, there's a stock market in France, and then there's this Euro Stocks 50, and it's actually quite large. It's actually one of the larger ones, $4.4 trillion in that market. But let's look at that on ChatGPT and see if that has any other advice for us. ESTX 50. Okay, let's try that out. ESTX 50. Bull markets index. Let's try this one here. See if that gives us some data. And it does. ESTX 50. So let's save that onto our chart and then do some analysis on that. So what is happening here? So you see that this is basically the S&P 500 right down in here, and you can see it's really hard to tell. It's actually more dynamic, so you see a harder downturn, and a kind of a softer downturn on the S&P 500. So actually this shows kind of a downturn, right? So you see that one shows a downturn trend here, and then this one is showing kind of a downward trend here on the S&P, but also we have this upward trend in recent weeks since basically January 20th. So this looks like a definite burst right on there. Now you can see sometimes down on here, this chart, it will say special things for the market, business climate, news related to the Fed forecast, and some other things like that. So I did check the Fed forecast and stuff. I could talk about these signals more in detail depending on if there is volume. So most of my charts, I use volume and price to check the. This is kind of a MACD. So what I did is I created my own MACD file here, and then kind of modified it. So I have my own code essentially in this. Let me see if I can get view the code here, source code. Yeah. So this is all created by AI and also by me, but basically it's calculations based on the fast and slow exponential moving average. It's basically a MACD if you're familiar with that. But what I do is I take the price and volume and I multiply them together. And you can see price change times volume right here, and that's the raw force. So a lot of times the MACD doesn't include the volume, and I really wanted to have a calculation that included the volume. So you see here, like this one pops a lot harder than other signals, just because the volume is so high there. Now the trading signal basically goes off of this. So you can see this trading signal said do not sell until here. But this one's saying buy, 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 and then start to sell right in here. Now this is more of a price volume trend. So I take the price times the volume and then add that up over the period. And this is also a custom calculation too. You can see this has been modified. And you can basically go in. That's why a lot of people use TradingViews, because they want to use their own calculations to kind of see what's been going on in the calculations. So again, you can see that we're not really in a sell stage. It's actually interesting that you cross right around where the American economy picks up, the other one starts to drop. So that's an interesting point perspective. But let's make sure we got this down for the now the Hang Seng. I've been looking at this one sometimes. I'm gonna start looking at this every like week or so. But this is basically how China works. So they basically have the Hong Kong market, and they have the Shenzhen SZSE, and then the traditional Chinese market SSE. So there's like basically three markets together. They're basically worth what the American market is worth, but the largest is actually the Hong Kong. And then you can see here, let's just grab what the ticker symbols is. It might be just HSI, but let's see what it says. And it does show HSI. So we want to take HSI and just take a look at that. HSI. Hang Seng Futures, Hang Seng Index. We basically want the index on this. And they don't have any volume on this, which is kind of sad. So I don't know why. This is over 3 months of data. So it's just price. So unfortunately, my other charts won't show up. Let's see if we get a different Hang Seng. Maybe a different one will show. Volume on it. That one doesn't show it. Futures. Aha. This does show it. But let's turn off the SPY and make sure that we got the correct one for this, because this does have volume. And then we want to see for Yahoo what the ticker symbol is, HSI. So let's try that. HSI. Hang Seng 26, and it's correct. Awesome. So this is a volume-based one. So we have, and that is futures. Interesting. Okay, great. So this ticker symbol works a little bit differently. Usually they have an exclamation point when you can actually trade it, like this. It depends. If it's a future, it will list the ticker symbol weird. So let's look at a couple points here. So we basically have pretty major points along some of these vertical lines. So we got a point there, pretty major point here, pretty major point in here, pretty major point basically around here. And then let's go look at what that means. And you can see that this red in the background here shows a lot of selling, actually. So we do see that buy signal in here, and we see a sell signal in here, with followed by another buy, and then a pretty big buy in here. So it did catch this buy, that momentum there. This signal did. And then you can see similarly they're not quite matching up, so you can see some turbulence in when you should buy or sell in Hong Kong. But basically right now, on the tip of this is saying sell, and you want to use a price volume trend, because again, that's price and volume, and you can see we kind of see a downward trend here. So this might be a short. We're seeing spurts of like ups and downs, but the good news here, which I haven't seen a lot in the Chinese market, is a pretty heavy upward trend. Right, this is pretty upward trend for the past 3 months or so. So Hong Kong looks pretty safe, and actually there's a top line to that as well, right? You can see there's basically up to here. Everything's captured within that, and then if you wanted to do a Fibonacci wedge, you could do that and see everything. So that's kind of showing 50%, 100% out to here. And you can kind of see it's kind of falling within that Fibonacci wedge, and you can see these segments kind of give you some ideas of where you're at on that whole line. So but let's continue on and look at the other Chinese index. This would be the mainland China index, the Shenzhen, because Shenzhen is right across the river from Hong Kong. We're going to skip that one, at least for tonight. But maybe look at, because we have quite a number of these to look at, and keep looking at all the global markets. A lot of people may want to say, how do you look at this on Yahoo? A lot of people start by looking at this in Yahoo, but when you use a more sophisticated, actually Yahoo Finance has a totally different symbol for this one. Interactive Brokers, SSE. So let's try to use SSE. Stock, does it say indexes? SSE crypto. Futures. Nope. Stocks, funds. So that's not really going to help us. That's not what we want to see. More tradable exchange. CSI 50 futures IF ETF. So let's look at this. Trying to large cap. FXI. So they actually don't even have. So this would be tradable large cap, like the 300 largest. It's kind of funny. My friend trades ASHR, kind of like my name, but we can check that one out here. Let's just check. This is one that you could trade from the. It's not going to be the same numbers, but it is going to correlate with the actual market. So we see in China, look at that. So there's a major drop right in here, and it almost dwarfs everything. Just dropped here. So that's, you got to actually pull that data out. It's so high on that chart. See if we can pull this in. So, and then we had another fall here. So basically, something major happened right in here, and it just dwarfs everything. So that was basically October 25th. We'd have to go check the news on that, but it dropped quite a number of percentage points, but you also see a lot of volume on that. So there might have been some buying and selling going on there as it dropped. But let's save this one for later, so that we can look at that. And we might have to do that. Let's just do the Shenzhen market really quick, see if we can get that. It might be a tradable symbol, ETF or something. So it's the same one. They're using ASHR, China Internet, China Large Cap, FXI. So there's another one called FXI. Let's just look at that one. Now this would be tradable on the American exchange through iShares. So this is if you wanted to get into China. Now that one looks a lot worse off. It actually looks significantly worse than the ASHR. And you can see that the distance is quite a 10%, 12% difference. It's a 1% up, but when you're talking 12%, a lot of people wouldn't trade that. But 12% gain over 3 months is pretty good. Actually, this is over, about 3 months. So that's not bad. But let's write this one down, FXI, and then we'll have to study these in the future. These are ETFs, basically. Now, Nifty, this is the Indian exchange, so let's go take a look at what's going on in India. Nifty, they might have I think they will even have an IFT. Look at, so we're just going to use the, for these, we're going to try to take a look at the tradable symbols in case we wanted to trade India directly from the American market. And you can see basically China has been doing quite a lot better, especially since around here, right? So you see this point, you have vertical line. Somewhere in here, really India started to have some trouble. That was around Christmas time. So India dropped off a lot ever since that, losing about 5%, in fact, whereas ASHR is up 15%. And you can see there was a pretty big gain in here, though. So you have right in here, there's a big buy-in followed by a drop. And it actually looks like there's still buy-in power here. So the interesting thing about this drop is that there's not a lot of volume behind it. There's actually quite a lot of buying pressure during these drops. So these drops happen quite irregularly. And this is basically partly because it's an ETF. We might have to actually find the Nifty, see if they have the Nifty 50. So let's add the Nifty 50 on this. And it shows the same. Interesting. But it's a little bit better. So I like this one a little bit better than the Nifty. So let's just put Nifty as a ticker, and I think we might even be able to find the same one here. No, maybe not. says Nifty, you can find it. Sensex, that's right. All right, so this is the other big one. One of them, it has to do with the history of India. There's basically these two stock exchanges, one in Mumbai and one just outside of Mumbai. But so it's I forgot which is which, but this is the Sensex, and we'll save that here to that, so we have chart. So you can see that same pressure. It might be nice to have the ETF versions of these as well. And I think ETF India. Small cap exposure, so we'll just save these two. It's really hard to do this on a spreadsheet, I found out, so I've been having some, I want to do this on a different type of thing. But so what did we learn from this? So we basically have, let's add the tradable, this is a tradable stock from the American side, and you can see it is kind of following, it should follow precisely, but it doesn't, because it's traded mainly in the United States, whereas this is traded directly in India. But you can see it dropped a lot faster, but the basic points are it almost stays identical. You can see that peak there stays almost in perfect alignment with the actual Indian stock here. And then again, you see this really big spike back in here. If we cut that spike out, we can start to see some of the more data that is maybe important. And you see another big spike here. So it looks like what's going on the Nifty as well as the India one is that they both show these spiking patterns, and that could be a lot of people just pulling money in and out of India in big amounts. And so yeah, so those are the main ones. I think we're going to stop with those right now for tonight. It's kind of a long topic, but if you're interested, we have this whole discussion that we do every week. I wanted to start with that one this week, but basically we go into the details like we did for the past 3 months, and then look at each of the market segments in the United States, as well as trying to see what's going on by earning reports, so you can see quite a bit on that, and then some just more TradingView S&P 500 details. And then this is all of the, oh man, we should just use this one. So this has all of the major markets indices all lined up, but the part is it's nice to look at it on a more technical chart. So this doesn't really have a super technical chart, so that's why we added them to the either you can look at it through Yahoo, or you can look at it through Interactive Brokers, or you can look at it through TradingView like we were doing tonight. And then this is how to do some searches. We want to do like top losers, top gainers, and take a look at that. But anyway, I hope this helped you understand some things. Get in contact with me if you'd like to talk about this in more detail. Thank you so much.